I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first human beings in history to walk on the surface of another world. Since that time, theories have been propounded that the whole enterprise was a massive hoax, spreading from one side of the United States to the other and involving thousands of government workers.
It does adhere in fine layers, powdered
The definitive response to these fantasies comes from Buzz Aldrin himself, who makes the point that America was in a race with the Russians, and if Apollo 11 hadn't gone to the moon, the Soviets would have made sure everybody knew.
footprints of my boots and the treads in the fine sandy particles.
But is it possible that there really was a conspiracy involving the first moon landing? Not one sanctioned by shadowy government agencies, not one involving secret lunar film sets in California, but a conspiracy involving just two men, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin. The 2 hours, 31 minutes and 40 seconds of the first moonwalk was amongst the most carefully prepared, intensively rehearsed activities ever undertaken by two human beings.
For those who haven't read the plaque, will
Every movement, every action, from the first step off of the lunar module to the final climb back into the spacecraft and the closure of the hatch, had been practiced time after time after time by Armstrong and Aldrin in the Earthbound simulators.
Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969, 50.
And yet somehow, despite the intensive preparation for the mission and the careful orchestration of every activity on the lunar surface, not a single usable picture of the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong, was taken. This omission has been explained away as an oversight, and Buzz Aldrin attributes it to the fact that Neil Armstrong was a better photographer than he was. But is it possible that the failure to take a single photograph of the first man to walk on the moon was because of a gentleman's agreement between himself and the second man to walk on the moon? In the months leading up to the Apollo 11 mission, there had been extensive discussions as to who would be the first to exit the lunar module and take the first step on the Sea of Tranquility. Both men were fully aware of the historical significance of the event, and that whoever took that first step would acquire a status which would put them on a par with Christopher Columbus, but that the second man on the moon could well be relegated to an historical footnote. Eventually, it was decided that it was the commander's privilege to exit the lunar module first. In addition, the way that the lunar module's hatch opened would have made it extremely difficult for the pilot, Aldrin, to have exited first. Is it possible that, having resolved the issue of who would take humanity's first step on another celestial body, Armstrong covertly offered Aldrin a compromise which would ensure both of their places in history? That while the name of Neil Armstrong would go down as the first moonwalker, the image that would always be seen of humanity's first expedition to the lunar surface would be that of Edwin Aldrin. Could it be that at some time in the build-up to the flight, Armstrong and Aldrin agreed between themselves that Armstrong would make sure that he acquired a good image of Aldrin on the lunar surface, but that Aldrin would fail to acquire a good image of Armstrong? Consequently, both of their places in history would be secured. The name of Neil Armstrong, but the image of Buzz Aldrin. If such a gentleman's agreement was made, it would have been a purely personal affair between the two colleagues. to have involved anybody else would have risked the subterfuge being exposed, and almost certainly prohibited. So, did the first two lunar explorers collude to ensure both of their places in the history books? We'll probably never know, but it would be good to think that Neil Armstrong, assured of his place in the record books, found a way to ensure his friend and colleague would also be remembered in one of the most significant moments in the entire history of humanity.